Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Keep it going big with love for Kris Rasmussen. Okay, so I'm 3 years old and I'm sitting at the table, eating my cereal, looking at my parents straight in the eye, their sleep-deprived eyes, when I announced to them, you know, before I came to live with you, I was out in the woods walking around with Jesus. Now, I don't know that I really remember saying that, but I know my parents told me this story a lot to prove their point that I was a very verbal and gifted and challenging and precocious child. Now, I tell this story often as my evidence that I have always known that I was adopted. There has never been a time, before my parents could even try to explain the concept to me, there's never been a time that I didn't know that I was really their gift. And you know, when you're a little kid, being adopted actually is really fun because I got 2 birthdays, not one. I got my regular birthday, but then I also got my coming home day, which I also got presents, and I also got to eat as much junk food as I wanted until I went into a sugar coma. And my parents would tell me these great origin stories about my life with them. They would tell me how when I was born and I had brown eyes, the adoption agency actually called my parents, my blue-eyed parents, and said to them, "Are you sure you want her? Because, you know, everyone's going to realize that she's not really yours." Yeah, it was the 60s. And my parents shut that down really quickly. And they also told me their story of how they promised they were never going to change the name of a child that they adopted. And then they found out I was named Eleanor. So, Kristen K it is. Thank you, Mom and Dad. And my adoption always kind of stayed in the fringes, in the background of my life growing up. When I was a little kid, I would say my bedtime prayers and I would pray for my birth mother and pray that she was okay and whatever that means to you when you're 6 or 7. And then when I hit my, melodramatic tween years, I started worrying about things like, is she a prostitute? Is she homeless? Is she a drug addict? And I live in a town of about 5,000 people in northern Michigan. And so I really blame that phase more on Lifetime movies and soap operas. And then I also had the classic phase of, you know what? My birth parents could be really famous. Like Roseanne. Back when we liked Roseanne. And then when I was in high school, I started entering speech competitions, and my speeches were about the need to overturn some of the closed adoption laws and to speak up for adoptive rights. Now, none of these things meant that I thought that I would have a better life if I had not been adopted. That's not true. It's just that even the 3-year-old me knew that there was a space inside me that was missing, and that there were pieces of my story missing, and I wanted to know them. That's all it meant. So we kind of move ahead to the 90s, and I'm in my 20s, and I'm having a particularly bad year. I have lost my first and only job since graduating from college at a little marketing firm because my boss verbally abused me, and he stole some money from me, and he commented on my big breasts a little one time too many, and so I finally found the courage to quit my job. Me too. And on top of that, my boyfriend of 4 years, the one I knew I was going to marry, obviously, suddenly came out of the closet. So I moved back to Michigan feeling depressed and ashamed and broke. And in those seasons of grief and loss, are when we start revisiting those missing pieces and those empty spaces in our lives. And so I started thinking about my birth mother. And at this time, I hired a social worker, and she specialized in biological reunions, and how it works is that she can get the records unclosed and go and find the birth parent, and if the birth parent agrees to a reunion, then she makes that happen and brings the parties together. And so I hired her to do that, and one day I'm at my job, and I call her from a payphone, and she tells me, "Kris, I have found your birth mother." Kris, she doesn't want anything to do with you. She has not told her husband about you. In fact, she told me she was going to sue me if I talked to you about her anymore. So Kris, you need to let it go. You need to get some therapy, but you need to let it go. And I try in my own way over the decades to let it go, to face the reality. So the rest of my 20s I spent being a missionary because I thought I would find purpose maybe in saving the world. That didn't go really well. I was kind of sort of fired. That's a whole different story for another night. So in my 30s then, I decided to become a teacher because I thought, well, I can't save the world, but maybe I can save the children. And I'm still working on that. I think the jury's still out, but I'm working on that. And then there's my 40s, which quite honestly, I don't really remember much of because my father had Alzheimer's disease and I moved home to help take care of him. And if there's anything that will teach you the importance of story, if there's anything that's going to teach you the importance of memory, it's watching someone you love, a gentle giant, slip so very slowly away from you. And I knew, I want my stories of my birth mother. I want memories of my birth mother. I don't want just the piece of paper. So here I am in my 50s, and I'm single, and I have a cat, and a brother who's ghosted my family a long time ago, and I'm still taking care of my mother. And my family tree really stops there, which makes me the perfect target audience for those DNA commercials. Especially at Christmas. For 50% off right now, you can find your roots. 23andMe says, meet your genes. And Ancestry.com has a spokesperson that says, my relative is George Washington, and I think we look a little bit alike. So for 50% off, I give myself a Christmas gift. I spit into a tube and I send my saliva off. The results come back, and it is very much like the worst dating app of all time. Because every day I get emails like this. Hi, Kris. 23andMe seems to think we're fifth cousins once removed. And I was wondering if you were related to the Ludwig Rasmussens. They were horse thieves in the 1800s. And, they're actually from Norway, though. They're from this island of Radog, which is north of Bergen. And they lived on this family farm, and delete. But just like those dating apps, just when you are about to give up all hope, you get that one message that changes everything. Kris, my mother and your grandmother were sisters. I knew your mother. Ding, 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 we have my match. So this is going to happen. Through the miracle of the internet, I find Susan's address, I find her phone number, I find her yearbook photos. I find out that I have her eyes and her hair and absolutely not her height. And yeah, I'm pretty bitter about that. So I think we're going to do this. I mean, times have gone on. It's changed. People change their mind. People have regrets, and maybe she wants to meet me now, and, I'm not getting older, she's not getting older. If we don't do this now, when are we going to do it? So I don't want to show up on her doorstep and go, surprise! So I start to write her a letter, and it's a letter that I've been writing in my mind my whole life. It starts, Dear Susan, there is no fear here. There is no shame here. There is only love. And I go on for paragraph, and I thank her for her gift of life. I empathize with her struggles and her pain. I promise not to tell her secrets. I send the letter, and I wait, and I wait. I imagine that it comes back to me returned to sender. I picture it getting lost in the mail. I picture her husband opening it up and ruining her life. I picture that she's going to give me an angry phone call. But most of all, I dream that she writes me back and says, Kris, that is the most beautiful letter I have ever received. But the days go into weeks and go into months, and there's nothing. Yet another dead end. Let it go, Kris. Let it go. And I think about that. But there's one other option for me. An option that I swore I would never, ever take. And that would be reaching out to one of my half-sisters. Because, of course, it's social media, and I've been stalking her for over a year, and I know exactly how to get a hold of her. But the question is, do I really want to drop myself into someone's life that selfishly? Do I really want to risk upending someone's picture of what their family is like? And the answer is yes, because I picked up the phone and I called Debbie. And I left this message and said, hi, I'm Kris, and I know your cousin Lisa, and I'm just doing a little genealogy research, and I just thought you might have an answer to a couple questions I have, and, I don't know, maybe not, but if you wanted to call me, go ahead and call me. She's not going to call me. Except that 24 hours later, I'm stumbling in from work, and her name flashes on my screen. No. Why did I call her? Why did I leave that message? What was I thinking? I don't know what I'm going to say to her. I haven't planned anything. Don't pick up. I pick it up. Well, hi. It's kind of weird. It's kind of funny. I can't even finish a sentence. So finally, my sister interrupts me and says, okay, whatever it is, it's going to be okay. Just tell me. So I tell her, I say, guess what? We're related. I'm your sister. And she gives a little squeal, and then she informs me, well, Kris, I hate to tell you this, but my mom's side of the family was pretty slutty. It was the 60s. So we talk on the phone for an hour, and she's so funny, and she's not mad at me. And she's so kind, and she's not mad at me. And when she has to go to an event, she says words that I've always wanted someone in my birth family to tell me. She says, don't worry, we're going to do this again. So we talk and we message each other over the months, and pretty soon I drive 12 hours down to visit her and her family, and the first thing we do is drink a couple margaritas, very important, and we look through photo albums together, and we talk about what we binge watch, and we eat pizza, and we eat ice cream, and I play Hamilton karaoke with my theater-loving niece, and I win. And as I leave, she says exactly the right thing again, and she says, "Don't worry, we'll do this again." So the months go by, we do continue to communicate, and then one day she surprises me with the news that on a trip to visit Susan, she decides to tell Susan that she's met me. And she says, "I've met Kris, like, we're communicating. It's really okay, it's fine." Susan's only answer was, "There must have been a mistake in the paperwork. I don't even know what you're talking about." Let it go, Kris. Let it go. And it is really easy to think, the social worker was right. Why didn't I just get into therapy and let it go? But the thing about gifts is that they do come in unexpected ways, at unexpected times, not necessarily the way we want to control them to be, because otherwise they're not a gift. So I've been given this gift of unexpected and new connection to new family. Right now I have 6 half-brothers and sisters, but the way things are going, if you check with me next week, that number, it could change. I don't know. And for better and worse, I do now have memories of my birth mother. And I do have stories to tell about my birth mother. And most of all, through this journey, through the decades, I really have come to a new appreciation of 2 very different but very strong women who both gave me a pretty wonderful life. Thank you.
Kris Rasmussen.